Hello my lovelies, this is your British lady again from EmzDiary, and today I want to talk about my favourite things about London. Don't forget to hit the ring-a-ding-ding bell below and hit the subscribe button if you enjoy these videos as well. And I also want to thank Rebecca Harmon Coaching for helping me with my YouTube channel. You can check out Rebecca Harmon Coaching in the link in the description box below, as well as James Tusa. He's doing a GoFundMe fundraiser for the people of Haiti, so do take a look at that link, which is also in the description box below. So today I want to talk about 8 things basically that I do like about London. We're not really comparing it to any other city, although I've only really been to 2 other major cities in 2 other countries besides London, so I'm not really comparing it too much. But I got 8 things. In my last video from last week I talked about 6 things that I disliked about London, so you can check that out as well in the playlist for the British Culture playlist. So the first thing that I've written down here is the plethora of museums and art galleries. And I'm going to be honest here, I have yet to go to a proper museum or a proper art gallery just because everything was in lockdown, majority art galleries and museums for the 7 months, my first 7 months living here. And I've only been in London now for 10 months. It was my 10 months 2 days ago on the 4th of August this year, so I haven't really had the chance to explore the art galleries or the museums, to be fair. I haven't really made it much of a priority between my work and everything else. I've been too busy, but I do need to make the time to go and explore the art galleries and the museums, and I haven't even been on the London Eye yet, unfortunately, because of the stupid lockdown ruining everything. So yeah, I had never really got to see what London was like before the lockdown, just because I moved here from the 4th of October in 2020, so another thing is there are some really nice, genuine people here. Like, they may not necessarily be from London, but you meet people from other parts of England. Like, I was at a freedom rally in December, and I had met this lady who's got a family up in just north of London in Hawley, I think it's called. Hollow Town, whatever it's called. They're north of London. I think sort of in Essex. I think it's in Essex. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sort of on the way there. Anyway, it's like 20-minute train ride like outside of London, but they invited me over to the house, and she'd only met me like once in person, and she didn't mind me meeting her on Boxing Day because she knew that I was alone on Christmas because my family's back in Canada, and she was nice enough to invite a complete stranger over to her house, which doesn't happen very often. It was really nice to be able to have some company on Boxing Day, and some other ladies that I had met through a community outreach thing here in London. They also invited me to their house, their flat, on Christmas Day. So I got to spend Boxing Day and Christmas Day with 2 different people. Though they didn't know me for very long, they were still nice enough to invite me over. That was really kind of them. And it's nice to know that there's some genuine community. Even if it's not people necessarily my generation, it's still nice to see there's some really kind, nice British people that you meet, not only in London but outside of London. The lady that invited me over on Christmas Day, they were actually Scottish. I've noticed the Scottish people are very kind people. They're a little bit more friendly, I find, than English people. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are, I've noticed. Maybe they're less likely to give you the stiff upper lip sort of thing. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but English people, I find they're a little bit more reserved than Scottish people. So another thing is, most of the time, depending on the area, people will come up to you if you look a little bit lost. You don't even have to necessarily go out of your way to ask for directions. I was lost several times here in London, and a couple of harmless people came up to me and pointed across the street when I couldn't find a building, or I couldn't find like a flat where I was going. Like, they're friendly in the sense that they'll like give you directions, but unless you genuinely connect with people and you break the ice, that, you know, it's a big city obviously, so someone doesn't know you, they're not really going to give out their number. Maybe if you're lucky you can get somebody's like email address, you can get their Facebook or something like that, but they're generally not going to give out their personal phone number. Sometimes people do, though. If you are at a big event with a lot of like-minded people, then like a social event, then they are more likely to give out the number. But one-on-one on the street, probably not so much. I guess that's typical nowadays in general, not just with London, because you've got spam callers calling people all the time. Earlier on today, I had some random bloke call my cell phone number, and he said it was the wrong number. I'm not even sure how he got my number. He must have just accidentally pressed the wrong number with a number that was similar to mine. So I can understand the hesitancy of not wanting to give out your phone number. Another thing is the souvenir shops are absolutely great. I got a really nice bag the other day from this really great souvenir shop in Oxford Circus. And the bloke who gave me the bag, he gave me £5 off instead of paying £20. I paid £15. And because I was a regular customer, he gave me a free keyring to go along with it. I'll go and run and grab the bag and show you guys the good deal that I got at these souvenir shops. Like, you get a lot of people from like India, and they don't mind giving you good bargains and lowering the price if it means they're going to have like a loyal customer. So this is the bag that I got, guys, for £15. And I told him I didn't want to pay £20. I just said, he's like, is that too much? And I'm like, yeah. So he gave it to me, £15, like a side bag, which is better for your back and better for your shoulders than a purse. Because a purse goes on one side and it just hangs, and it's not really good for your spine. So the souvenir shops are great. They're all over. You find them mostly in Oxford Circus, Westminster area. Those are the biggest tourist areas, I think. Or maybe Trafalgar Square probably has a lot of them too. Another thing is obviously the pubs, although they weren't opened up until whenever it was, the last week of May. So they've really only been opened up for just over 2 months, but I really enjoy the alcohol being fairly inexpensive compared to bars in Toronto. I don't like beer. I'm not really a beer drinker, but I've noticed that a lot of like convenience stores and grocery stores, I think that's just England in general, but not just London, they carry alcohol in the same store, so you don't have to go to a separate store to buy alcohol. Whereas in Canada, or at least Ontario, we've got something called the LCBO, I think, which is the Liquor Commissioner of Ontario. Yeah, I think it's the Liquor Commissioner of Ontario, something like that. And we have all these separate stores that are separate from grocery stores because the majority of grocery stores in Ontario don't sell alcohol the way that stores here in England do. So that's quite convenient. You don't have to go looking for an alcohol store when you're out buying your shopping, your groceries. You can just go in the same store and find your alcohol, though they are strict on ID over here. I can't count how many times I've been carded here. I was trying to buy some CBD gummies the other day at Asda, and they thought that I looked under 25, even though I'm not under 25. I've gotten like 21, I've gotten 18. People think I can pass for 18 apparently. So I always get ID'd, which is frustrating because I don't have a UK driver's license, and I don't really like walking around all the time carrying my British passport because of identity theft. Just because there's purse snatchers in London, I don't like taking that risk. So, yeah. Another thing is, yeah, it's quite diverse. You do meet a lot more Europeans over here than you do over in Toronto. I've met quite a few Polish people. Sometimes you meet the occasional Hungarian person, the occasional Russian person. I haven't really met too many people from like Croatia. There's a couple of Greek people. You meet some nice people from Spain. You might get more people from Spain. You get people from France. Spain and France is popular. I haven't really met any Germans, I don't think. I'm sure there's a few Germans in London, but I haven't really seen any. I haven't really connected with any. I've seen more Polish people. I think Polish, Spanish from Spain, and French people from France are the most popular European countries that come over to the UK. You get quite a few Belgian people as well. You do get some Belgian people, but I'd say Germany's not as popular. You know, Croatia, Russia, those countries, you don't seem to get as many people from there. And you get a lot of Americans too, definitely a lot of Americans that you meet. I'd say maybe 1 out of every 50 to 100 people that I meet one American, 1 to 100 I'd say, here in London, so. And there's a lot of recording studios, which is really nice. I still want to go into one. I haven't had the chance to record any music or anything, but there's a lot of people that like play the guitar, and I'm connecting with somebody right now from another part of England who's actually giving me free guitar lessons over Zoom, which is really nice, because he's getting kind of fed up with the lockdown and he doesn't mind giving me lessons for free, because I'm basically a novice, so... Another thing is, there's a lot of bicycle lanes here, which is nice. I know a lot of cities don't have that. Toronto has very few bicycle lanes, if any. Definitely not in downtown Toronto, which over here you call central London. Like, as much as I don't like cycling in the city, I'm still not nearly confident enough to bicycle by myself here in London. Number one, because I didn't grow up here. Number two, I don't like the traffic. I don't like the winds or the rain. If it's raining, it's just not practical to bike here because the roads get slippery, and in my opinion that can be dangerous if you're not confident. Like, I was never like a professional bike rider. I know a lot of people here in England do it professionally, so they're confident enough to do that kind of thing. They don't mind biking around cities with like heavy traffic, but I'm not really a huge fan of doing that. Even back in Toronto, which is like half the size of London, less than half the size, I still wouldn't be confident enough to do it unless I'm with somebody. If I'm with somebody that's good with traffic, I don't mind biking, but by myself is definitely like a no-go. And yeah, the last thing, I guess is somewhat comparing to Toronto, is it is a more mild climate. I don't like the humidity though that we get. There is a lot of humidity and that does bother me because it's sticky. It's just a sticky feeling in the air, and it gives me headaches sometimes. That is a downside, but at least it's not as extreme with the weather as Toronto. I'd say Toronto is worse because you're going to have one day that's 28 degrees Celsius and sunny, and the next day it's like 30 degrees Celsius and raining. The humidity is so bad that the clouds burst with rain because it's so humid from the heat that it goes drastic from hot and sunny one day to like rainy and humid the next day. And we get that sometimes in England, but it won't last anywhere longer than like 1 to 2 weeks, and that's mostly in July. August starts to cool down more. June, you get the occasional heat wave for maybe 1 to 2 weeks, but it's generally still pretty temperate, more rain, temperatures below 23 degrees. You're generally going to see 19 being the average temperature, 20 degrees Celsius being the average temperature. Another thing is, yes, the transport. So transport for London, we've got the Oyster card. One thing that I like is it does tell you, at least, like it gives you an idea on City Mapper how much money you're going to spend on transit, so you can better plan your route without having to spend an awful lot of money. Whereas in Toronto, generally it is the same fare when you think about it, because we don't have all the zones that London has. We don't have like Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4, or whatever. 5 zones I think there is in London. I've lost track now, correct me if I'm wrong. 5 zones at least, but because in Toronto we've only got like 4 subway lines, whereas in London I think there's like 16. If I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong again. I'm pretty sure there's 16 tube lines, but we get like the same rate no matter where you're going in Toronto. It's always going to be like the same amount of money that you spend. I'm pretty sure. I haven't used Toronto transport in so long. It's been like 15 months since I last used it, or 14 months, whatever, since I last used it. So forgive me if I'm a little bit rusty on my transit here, but we have a Presto card in London, in Toronto I mean. It's similar to the Oyster card. You tap in, you tap out. They phased out the tokens and the cash thing back in like 2018. In Toronto, apparently in London they phased it out back in 2011, so again, Toronto is way behind on things, as usual. But yeah, that's really it, guys. That's the 8 things that I like the most about London. I'm sure I'll think of some more things down the road when I finally had the chance to explore the famous tourist attractions. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, let me know in the comments below. What do you like best about London, or the city where you're from? What city are you from? And what are your favorite things about that city? And I'd appreciate the thumbs up, thumbs down button. and share this video with your friends if they've never been to London and you'd like to educate them from somebody who's a dual national in both Canada and the UK. Have a wonderful rest of your week, guys. Toodaloo.